Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to VAR on Air. VAR on Air is the biweekly program hosted by the Vietnamese American Roundtable where we cover information, the most relevant, recent, and recent information that's important to our community. You can find us here on Facebook Live every other Wednesday at 7 o'clock, and we're also live, we can also be heard on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. on 1430 a.m. KVVN radio station. And just to give everyone, our regular viewers and those who are going to be viewing this after tonight, sort of some context. Today, my name is Philip Nguyen. I'm the executive director for the Vietnamese American Roundtable, and I'll be the host for today. Unfortunately, we're going to be missing G, who is usually our co-host and is one of our program managers. And just as a quick announcement to all the folks that are listening in with us, G will actually be leaving us as a program manager and taking up a new role at the mayor's office. So in the future, for a future VAR on Air, we'll actually be having G back as a guest, so he can talk a little bit about his time as one of the founding members, one of the folks who was there for the founding of VAR, and all the work that he's doing in the Vietnamese American community now. So for today, it'll be me as your host, and I'm really excited to be able to announce and welcome to the virtual stage one of our newest board of directors members. Her name is Linda Ding Nguyen, and I'm just going to bring her up. Welcome, Linda, to VAR on Air.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great. Yeah, and so for today's VAR on Air, it'll be me and Linda. We're going to talk a little bit about what's kind of been going on with the COVID-19 pandemic, the Delta variant, vaccine hesitancy, and then we'll transition over and talk a little bit about the California recall election, which is our big topic point for today. So before we get to that, Linda, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you got involved with VAR?
Sure. Again, thank you for having us, and thanks for joining us. So again, Linda Nguyen. So I started actually volunteering with VAR just a few months ago in the spring, kind of helping with the newsletter. So, if you all subscribes to our weekly newsletter, awesome. If you haven't, we can certainly put that in the chat as well. So I've been helping with that. And then I joined the board actually just last month, and it's been really great so far. Before that, I actually am with Pivot, the Progressive Vietnamese American Organization. And that's how I actually met some VAR staff and some VAR board members. And, Pivot is a national organization, and I wanted to do a little bit more local stuff. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll look into volunteering and joining a local organization such as VAR. I had heard such great stuff. And so here I am. And I actually, for my professional life, I do work in local government. So I've been doing that for several years in spaces like public health, as well as social services and environmental stewardship, and currently in public utility right now. And so thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Linda, for being here. And just really quickly, you're also born and raised in San Jose, right? So you're also a local, and so this pivot back to working with local communities it's a homecoming, even though you were at home this whole time, right? So.
Yeah, no, great point. I've lived in the South Bay my entire life, but a little late to the game in kind of being a part of the Vietnamese American community, and so I've always been somewhat politically engaged and active, but maybe never felt really embraced or really knew enough about to be more involved. And so 2020, I got a lot more involved in just general stuff, and so I thought that this would be really meaningful and great, and so that's why I was like, why not? And so it's been a lot easier in the virtual space as well.
Right,
to be
right.
more involved.
And I guess since you've been newly involved or have found this kind of homecoming, what have been some of the issues that have felt most personal or most pertinent to you and your own experience being from San Jose?
Yeah, I think, a little bit of everything. Learning more about, our community and culture and some of the issues that are really pervasive in our culture, like misinformation, right? Like that's huge. my Vietnamese is not that great. And so, I may not be reading a lot of Vietnamese American news, but I do speak to my family and whatnot. And sometimes I hear the stories and I'm like, well, I don't know if that's the greatest source. And so, the more I learn, the more I see that it's not only a problem within our own community, but within a lot of communities. And so I think that, networks like this and this type of programming is really great to really give really great objective news so people can really learn more, because there's not a lot of those spaces. And so I'm always really happy to see more of these spaces really that contribute to a resolution.
Right, for sure. Thank you. And I think, like being involved with VAR, I guess being involved with VAR, and, just for those of y'all that don't know, Linda is the one that has been writing our weekly newsletter blast that goes out to, I think, over 1,500 people across the VAR network. And in those newsletter blasts, she kind of works through the general overview of the other events, issues, topics, things that are going on locally that folks can get involved with, important links and where folks can find resources, and just general information and the sort of need to know for our more marginalized or vulnerable community members out there, right? So thank you so much for that, Linda. And I guess kind of pivoting from that, we've got some issues that we want to talk about tonight on VAR on Air. I'm also going to apologize really quickly because my Vietnamese is also not cũng không được rành lắm, so I won't be able to run this interview in Vietnamese with you, so we'll have to find someone to translate before we put it on the radio. But we want to talk about COVID-19, right? And I know prior to us hopping on the air today, Linda, we're kind of approaching this fourth wave of COVID-19, right? The pandemic, there are a lot of breakthrough cases. We know about the Delta variant, and it's very surprising to hear that people still haven't been or aren't getting vaccinated, right? I don't know about for you if it's been surprising or if it's something that you've seen.
Yeah, no, I think that is very much the case. That's why, like, you've been seeing a lot of, I feel like I've been seeing more and more information in Vietnamese about COVID and what's happening, which is really great. But I think, for the most part, there's still a lot of people who are hesitant about the science, or hesitant because they think it came out a little bit too early in terms of the vaccine. But I think that, and which is, sometimes a healthy skepticism, but for the most part, when you're seeing the results and you're seeing that, a lot of people are dying and are affected by this, you're like, what can I do, right? Like, if I can get vaccinated, if I can wear my mask, if I can do everything that I can personally, then I think that's what's important. That's what kind of grounds me as well. Like, I'm not a healthcare provider. Like, I'm not on the front lines. Like, I can't do any of that, but what can I do within my own community? And so I think the more we learn and the more we inform ourselves and have those conversations with our loved ones to try to figure out and understand really like why they're hesitant, and what might change their mind, and kind of humanize that and empathize with them, it might be a little bit of an easier conversation. But everybody has their various worries, and so I understand. But at the same time, at the end of the day, the vaccine overall is a safe method, right? And the other result is getting hurt, hospitalized, and really ill. And so just looking at the numbers of increases of hospitalization and people dying, it's really scary to me. And so I do take it personally, and I think it is hard for people because it's like this deadly, silent killer that people don't understand and see.
Right. And I have here on a tab from Santa Clara County Department of Public Health, the Emergency Operations Center. They have this website, covid19.sscgov.org, and it kind of shows this graph. It shows this graph of the increase in cases over the past 7 days, as well as cumulatively the cases that we're seeing in the county, right? And I know that for folks that are in organizing spaces, we're fighting to find ways to get this data disaggregated, right? I think there's a way to look at it based on race and ethnicity. And so, but for us in the Vietnamese American community, right, when we're talking about community, how many of these, new cases and how many of our folks are still yet to be vaccinated, right? And so it's very scary to see and to know that we've gotten so close to, making it through the finish line, and, we're kind of getting tripped up here, right? And, I think another point is, if y'all can see the tweets from Healthy SCC on the right, is that it's a lot of our youth, right? Like a lot of folks that are 12 years old and under that haven't been able to get vaccinated yet. to know that the folks that are 12 years old and older, we're in Santa Clara County, we're at 81%, right? It's really important to know that that 19% can really make a big difference, right? Even though they're, it might seem small, right? It might seem like, oh, we're already at 80%, we've got a B, right? But we're really, I think, trying to reach that 100% to keep everyone safe. So, and I think, as we're here talking about providing some COVID-19 updates, because that's what we do here in VAR and Air. A couple of things to note about Santa Clara County's public health information and some of the restrictions going on. We really want to encourage you to wear a mask still wherever you can, especially indoors. And I know that yesterday the city of San Jose City Council has passed a vaccine mandate, right, for all events that are on city property that are larger than 50 people in attendance, right? And then I know that there are a lot of folks, out there. I know, Linda, you mentioned when we were checking in that there are also private entities, right, that are requiring proof of vaccination for events, right?
Correct. Yeah, I just went to actually a fairly large event, even though it was outdoors, but San Jose Jazz Fest. They had some of the venues that were indoors, and they required proof of vaccination. Some places are requiring either proof of vaccination and or a negative test. It varies, but I believe that space actually required proof of vaccination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. And I think with that, with sort of the changing restrictions and this changing landscape of how we're living and, feeling as though there are restrictions being placed on us, I think it's really important to remember that this is on behalf of everyone, right, that is living around us, because COVID-19, even though at times it might feel personal to us, it's really about how we engage and interact with other people in the community, right? So I think, in other words, spread the word, not COVID-19, right? About the vaccine, about what we can do to keep each other safe, and especially I think for those of y'all who are watching this now or watching this later, who have had difficulty kind of talking to their parents or their aunts and uncles, I think it's really helpful to know that just as of 2 days ago, the Pfizer vaccine has received FDA approval, right? So it feels a little bit more official, right? It feels maybe a bit more safe for those who have been hesitant in the first place. And pivoting from that, another one of the issues that we have that are coming up, right, Linda? And I think the main topic of today's VAR and Air conversation is the California recall election, the California gubernatorial recall election, right? And which is essentially, what we want to provide here in VAR and Air is to give you all a sense of what to expect, how you can exercise your right to vote, and to also talk about why it's important and how it came to be, right? So, I mean, Linda, if you don't mind me asking, how did we get here where we're looking to recall the governor?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. It's funny because, these things don't happen very often. So on September 14th, so this recall election to quote, possibly remove our current governor, Gavin Newsom, from California. So this ballot, this has only actually happened. This will be the second time in history, really, just because the threshold is really difficult in terms of actually allowing this election to happen. And because of the circumstance of the pandemic, that actually kind of helped, because usually I believe, you have to have a threshold of 12% of the population of California in order to even get it on the ballot. And you have 160 days to do it. And so typically that is really hard. But, the person who kind of started this appealed that during this pandemic, it's really hard to get those signatures because of the pandemic. And so, the courts actually gave them extra 4 months to get the needed signatures, which was a little over 1 million a little over 1.4 million. So they got enough signatures. And so the last time this actually happened was back in 2003. I don't know if y'all remember, but Arnold Schwarzenegger became our governor who replaced Gray Davis, right? And so this doesn't happen very much. And it only really takes the majority. So if the majority, for the most part, so there's 2 questions asking that you'll actually see on your ballot, which can be a little bit confusing. So, the first question asks, should Gavin Newsom be recalled / removed from the governor's office? So that's the first question. So if you want him to be removed, you would say yes. But if you want to keep him, then you would say no. So that can be a little bit confusing for people. And then the second question is, if in the instance that Newsom is recalled, which candidate do you want to replace him? And there's, over 46 candidates. A lot of them you may not know because a lot of them are politicians, but also celebrities and YouTubers and students and whatnot. And so there's a lot of different characters actually on that list that can be a little bit confusing. And some people are confused as, like if I should even answer to the second question. And so that's really up to you if you want to answer, because if you don't answer and something happens and he's recalled, then you don't get a say, right? And so it's really up to you to make that decision. So so some of the information out there is kind of confusing, but as I was asked to be on here, I was like, let me read as much as I can to find out kind of background and whatnot. And so I thought it was really actually interesting in terms of the stats. Mm-hmm.
Right, for sure. And I think it's really important to know too, right, that it took just 12% of the signature, or 12% of the signatures needed came from the number of people who had elected Governor Newsom, right? So it only took that 1.5 million votes out of, I think, was it 60 million something votes, right? They weren't able to get enough signatures, so it was extended. And now, there are two questions on this ballot. One is whether we recall the governor or not. And then the other is whether, if we were to recall the governor, if that first vote gets over 50%, who would the people want as the governor, right? And I feel like there's another important point to note is that, it does not, even although it requires a simple majority or at least 50% of the vote to recall the governor, the person who people vote for on the back of their ballot, right, out of this however many candidates, does not need the at least 50% vote, right? They don't need a majority to be the next governor, right? And I think that that's something for us to, I think about, right? And as we're, VAR is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're of course not endorsing any candidate or any political party, but it's really important for us and for the listeners on VAR and Air to know that when you are making this decision to cast your ballot, which you should, because you should exercise your right to vote, right? And that's a part of being American and living in the United States, to know the implications of what it is that you're doing on your ballot or not doing, right? And so, given all of this information about the ballot, I feel like that's as straightforward as we can be to get through the two questions, to literally show you the ballot. Most of the ballots in this past week have been mailed to many folks across California, right? And for those of y'all who are still may not have received your ballot yet, we want to direct you to where you can find out your early voting status, right? And so if you visit caearlyvoting.sos.ca.gov, you can use this tool and find where's the nearest location for you to either pick up your ballot if you have not received it yet, or drop off your ballot after you have completed it, right? And it shows what days they're open and when you can get there and how to get there, right? So we just wanted to provide y'all with that information and leave it on there. So,
and another thing I wanted to just quickly bring up as I was reading this, and I know a lot of people here that this type of effort, not only is it rare, but it's really costly too, right? And so, if you actually look in your voter guide, it actually states like how much approximately they think that it costs both the state and the county, 276 million, right? And so, during this pandemic and everything going on, a lot of people think that would be maybe better wisely used for something else. And so that's something else, for us to kind of consider and see why it's really significant that it costs us this much. We should definitely voice, our opinion and make sure that, whoever we want to, either remain or become in office actually is the voice of the community. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And I think part of the democratic process and being in the United States too is to be able to determine with your vote, right, with your electoral power, how public funds are used, right? And to think about how, $276 million is a lot of money that could have been spent on other other things that are very important and relevant to our communities, right? And I know I'm going to bring up a comment really quickly. Nguyen has shouted out to Linda being a compassionate supporter of Santa Clara County's homeless response network. And the money, honestly, I'm upfront, right? The money that we're spending on this recall election could have gone towards supporting homeless folks, towards housing, towards the economy, or towards COVID-19 efforts, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, yeah, all of the above, really. I think that, some people bring up the case, why if you're either happy with the direction or if you're unhappy, you should still voice your opinion on what's kind of going on. So 276 million is nothing to sneeze about for sure.
Right. And it's so important. And I think that's one of the things that we want to remind folks, from our perspective as VAR, we really want to empower folks to advocate for themselves and for their communities, right? And so with that, I think, that's kind of the gist of it. What's going on with the California recall election. Really quickly, I want to direct everyone to the VAR website because, we are in this period of transition. Linda is one of the first board members of the new board members that we're looking to announce soon, who we want to spotlight and highlight on VAR and Air to show that, there are a bunch of really great people at VAR who are doing really great work, and we're excited to welcome opportunities for really great people to volunteer with us and support our programs. So if you haven't visited already, visit varoundtable.org. You can check out the landing page here, learn a little bit more about some of our programs and projects going on, who we are, as well as sign up to be a volunteer. So one of the places you can do that is here. You'll come, a Google form will pop up, and this will be where we reach out to you to ask you how you want to be involved and support VAR in the Vietnamese American community. So, and it looks like, Linda, you have some fans too in the chat. But with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone out there today and who is going to be viewing this later for joining us on VAR and Air this week. We again hold VAR and Air every 2 weeks. The next couple of VAR and Air topics we'll be talking about issues and topics and themes that are that hit close to home, such as the redistricting process, right? Following up from the census, information about the closure of the Reed Hillview Airport and what that means for us, as well as celebrating Tết Trung Thu and the return to school for a lot of our students. So stay tuned. And with that, I want to, again, thank you, Linda, so much for being here on VAR and Air tonight. And if you have anything else that you'd like to say to the audience today.
No, just, again, if you haven't been subscribed to our newsletter, please do. I think it's great, really. Honestly, we try to keep it really short and sweet. And so, the more that you know and be informed, I think the better. And so that's what we're really just hoping for. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for having me.
Great. All right. And with that, good night, everyone, and see you next time on VAR and Air.